All right, hello everyone. My name is Brendan Busby, and today I'm going to be giving you guys a presentation on my Wakelet of the movie Yesterday, which was filmed in 2004 and directed and written by Daryl Root. So, starting off, just a quick background of the film. Yesterday is, in my eyes, a very empowering film that takes you through the journey of a mother and who is Yesterday, who you can see right here. That's Yesterday. That's her daughter Beauty. But it takes you to the journey of the mother Yesterday as she goes through a journey of finding out that she has been diagnosed with HIV. It's a really empowering and emotional story. Is even though Yesterday is diagnosed with being HIV positive, she never really lets that get in the way of the love for her daughter and the dream she wants for her daughter, which is to go to school. Yesterday vows throughout the movie that she is going to survive long enough to be able to witness Beauty go to school, and it is just something that is just really to the viewer, just something that is very emotional as you see the ups and downs she has to go through and the trials and tribulations she faces along the way. So jumping right into it, my first section here is just a trailer of the movie Yesterday. So just to kind of give the viewer or the reader of the Wakelet a quick view of the movie and a little bit of a trailer. And then I also have a movie description right here with it, and I'll read that all to you. It says, after being ill for quite some time, Yesterday finds out that she is HIV positive. With a daughter to provide for and a husband who is unwilling to not only accept that he has the virus, but that he is the one who transmitted it to her, Yesterday vows to live long enough to make sure that she sees her daughter go to school. Nominated for several awards, including both an Oscar nomination and an Emmy nomination, Yesterday is an emotional roller coaster that takes the viewer on a journey of perseverance and courage, all while highlighting the HIV/AIDS epidemic in South Africa and the social stigma that surrounds it. I just feel like that was a pretty good little bit of a synopsis of the movie, just to give the reader of my Wakelet a good idea of what the movie is about and a little bit of the description. Moving next is the cinematography phase of my Wakelet, and I won't read that all to save time, but just to give kind of a quick summary, the cinematography in Yesterday was just perfectly executed in my eyes. I feel like they did a very good job of using the lighting of shots and the angle of shots, as well as the zooming in and zooming out that was done with the camera and kind of the perspective we were given in a lot of shots. I listed a few examples there, but just some off the top of my head. There's a scene when Yesterday you can tell she's really starting to get sick with the virus. We do not yet know that she has HIV, but we are just able to know that okay, she's getting pretty sick. And there's a scene in which the scene just comes in and it is kind of we're getting a viewpoint from about a corner of a house opposite of Yesterday's home, and all we're able to see is her passed out in the doorway and her legs essentially just being out of the doorway, and that's pretty much all we can see. The inside of the house appears very dark, and you can only really see the lower half of her body coming out. And I feel like the angle of the shot that was used, it's kind of like an angle in which, like, almost as if you were at the corner of the house opposite, you are just able to kind of get a wide view of the situation, and it really just I feel like that the shot angle and the lighting used in that really just kind of conveys to the viewer the fear and scared feeling that we're supposed to feel in that moment. And then Beauty, her daughter, eventually sees her mom, like Beauty was off playing and she runs up to the house and sees her mom laying there, and then the camera shifts almost as if we were Yesterday looking up at Beauty. Obviously Yesterday was unconscious, but we see the fear and panic and hear the fear in Beauty's voice, as you know, she has found her mother just passed out in the doorway, very unconscious. It's a very scary moment in the movie, and it kind of gives way to really what the viewer is going to see the rest of the movie. They're going to see her struggling with AIDS, and that this was just kind of the first opening to, excuse me, HIV. It's not really distinguished if she ever gotten full AIDS, but it just kind of gives a full viewpoint of what this HIV virus is going to do to her throughout the movie. So that was a brilliantly captured scene. And then another scene comes to mind at at the end of the movie, well, towards the end of the movie, when Yesterday has to build her husband essentially a hut some ways off from their village because the villagers no longer accepted him. They were afraid of him because he had HIV and he was being ravished by the disease. So she builds this hut for him, and then after she finally builds it, she's standing atop of it, and all we see is just we see her standing atop of the hut, and we see obviously the hut, but her and the hut are kind of like shaded off. They kind of appear almost like shadowy, like just darker, and then in the background of the shot is just a giant sunset, just a cloud full of, I mean, just a sky full of beautiful sunset. And I feel like the way the camera was used in this scene, as well as the lighting, really just kind of in that moment captured just the perseverance and courage that Yesterday had. That even though that she was battling HIV, she was still overcoming all these things, not only to take care of her husband, but to really provide for her daughter and just let nothing get in the way of the love for her daughter. So those are just two kind of short examples of the great cinematography that was used in the movie. So moving on, my next topic here in the Wakelet is the social issue within Yesterday. And as you can already tell, the social issue in Yesterday was really the HIV/AIDS epidemic that is in South America. And while that is just a very sad topic, we kind of get a point of realism that some people in South Africa, when they have HIV or AIDS, if it develops to AIDS, they are really shunned. They are shunned. The village or community they live in is afraid of them. They're teased. They're gossiped about, and I feel like that this movie really kind of captured that and gave us a point of realism that not many of us are aware of. That people in South Africa with HIV deal with. They deal with a lot of stigma, a lot of just a lot of condemnation from others, which is just so undeserved. I mean, obviously, they have this disease that is just taking the life out of them every day, but they're not really getting a lot of compassion. In the movie Yesterday, there's only about two people that supported Yesterday in her journey with HIV, and that was her friend, the teacher, and as well the doctor that diagnosed her. As I mentioned, her husband was greatly made fun of, was shunned, was kind of poised as this monster that the village didn't really want in their town anymore. The villagers didn't want to go around them. They were actually at points harassing Yesterday and her family. There would be several. There was a couple scenes when the village would almost essentially just gather around Yesterday's house, and they were trying to look in the window, see what was going on with the husband. They were just saying, we don't want him here anymore. And there was even a I guess my best description was kind of just like a psychic or holistic doctor within the village, and she really never said that, oh, you're sick with HIV. She just kept trying to say that Yesterday was sick because of her anger. So just very dismissive of the HIV/AIDS topic, and no one really took it as a serious matter, but instead a matter of that the whoever had HIV or AIDS was just needed to be written of. Yesterday even explains in the movie that there was a woman she had known of who had AIDS, and the village she lived in stoned her to death just because she had HIV and it developed to AIDS. So I just feel like that was the social issue within Yesterday, and that's kind of what I talk about here in this topic. And going down, I have an article here and a Twitter link that really just kind of adds to the social stigma of HIV/AIDS in South Africa. Here you can see that I have an article titled "The AIDS House," and just a quick description. This lady, Alicia Mdaka, who was living in South Africa, her family and even her extended family had dealt with HIV/AIDS, and because of that, there was times when her family was made fun of. They even referred to her house as the AIDS house, but Alicia goes through the article just basically talking about how hard it was dealing with that, the how her community gave her so much backlash, but then she turns it and says that in the modern era, in today's world, that it's gone from condemnation to more support, that people understand kind of what happens in to a family when they're affected by HIV and AIDS. So it's good to see that even though there was a social stigma and at times there still is, that it is changing a little bit and people are beginning to become acceptive and supportive for people that are impacted with that. This tweet right here is just a quick tweet that says HIV is not a death sentence. You can live a normal life. Although HIV is still prominent in South Africa, it no longer means that it's something that can't be treated and that it's just you're going to die. So it's just good to see that this tweet is kind of taking a stand to that stigma and that HIV/AIDS isn't something that is a death sentence that someone needs to be afraid of if someone has HIV/AIDS, but it's something that can be treated. My next article here is just kind of a statistical analysis of the HIV epidemic in South Africa. A quick description I put, but if you click on the article, it would kind of bring you more. It says this study relates that as of 2020, 7.8 million people in South Africa have HIV, and that there have been over 83,000 AIDS-related deaths in the country. That to me just really stood out, and um, 7.8 million people is a lot of people, as we all know, and it's actually the country with the highest rates of HIV. So that's just something that was kind of really gut wrenching and sad to see, and it was something that I felt needed to be included to kind of spread awareness, which is what this film does. The next tweet kind of shifts more towards young women and how they're impacted by HIV. It says South Africa currently has 200,000 new HIV infections per year, 130,000 of them among young women. That is something that really stood out to me and I felt needed to be included in this because while yesterday tackles HIV/AIDS in South Africa, it also shows how young women are impacted by it. And I just feel like this tweet kind of captures that as you see, 200,000 new HIV infections per year, and 130,000 of them are young women. That is just an eye-popping stat. Moving on to the next article, this is just a general article that is a statistical breakdown and analysis of HIV/AIDS epidemic in South African women, primarily young women. There's a lot of good statistical information on there, and it just kind of really captures just how much HIV and AIDS has impacted young women in South Africa. It's very sad, but it's an article with statistics that will really open your eyes to the situation. These next two, well, it's a YouTube video and an article here. These are both kind of coincide within each other. It's Dale Root's viewpoint on his film, and he explains that he wanted to illuminate the crisis of HIV/AIDS epidemic in South Africa, but then he also goes on to say that not enough socially conscious movies like Yesterday are made anymore, and that's something that he wished would change. This NPR article here is Leti Kumalo, and she was the lead actress of Yesterday. She's the woman who acted as Yesterday. And she just kind of goes into detail about the HIV/AIDS epidemic in South Africa. She explains how women in rural areas are so impacted by this and how there's not enough education on the topic in South Africa, primarily in these rural areas. And I just feel like this was a great, kind of viewpoint from the lead actress as well. And to go with that, she also said that she, spoke to a lot of women in rural areas who were impacted by HIV, and she wanted to essentially make it a mission to tell their story through this movie. And these two images here, they are well, this one right here is a movie review from the perspective of an individual with AIDS. I just feel like it was perfect to add this because it gives you one viewpoint of someone with AIDS on how they saw the film. And then down here, this is the movie review from the perspective of a South African. And I just feel like this was another these two really coincided with each other. You have a review of from the perspective of someone with AIDS, and then a review from the perspective of a South African who's really seen this as a whole. And then coming down to the end here is where I tie it all together, and I just explained that Yesterday is an empowering story that just even though it is a movie, it just has such a greater story. It tells about the struggle of HIV/AIDS in South Africa, and just what this movie really did for raising awareness on the subject. And I just really kind of believe that without Yesterday, a large portion of the public outside of South Africa may not have realized how serious of an epidemic is going on in South Africa, and that this movie raised awareness and brought light to the social stigma surrounding the virus and disease. In my eyes, it's a brilliant movie with an even better impact, and I believe if you guys watch that, you would feel the same, and you would just truly understand what is going on in South Africa. I hope this was a good video for you all, and thank you for your time.